Auston Matthews is doing things we have never seen before. Toronto's top center is scoring at nearly a goal per game pace, above even his incredible 60-goal MVP season. Assuming he finishes with 50 or more goals at the end of 2023-24, Matthews will have scored 150 plus goals in a 3-season span. This incredible statistic is made even more impressive by the fact that last season, a year in which he still scored 40 goals in 74 games, was impacted by a wrist injury that lingered throughout much of the season. Auston Matthews is already the most talented player ever for a franchise that has existed for over 100 years. He's scoring at a rate that rivals the prime seasons of Alexander Ovechkin. It's time to talk about where Auston Matthews ranks in comparison to the rest of the NHL, about where his place is in today's league, and even in all-time rankings. Today, let's take a look at the explosive season and career of Auston Matthews, the best goal scorer in today's NHL. Since he's entered the NHL, nobody has scored more goals than Auston Matthews. In his 513 games, Matthews has scored 328 times, clearing second best Ovechkin by 25 goals in 28 fewer games. Matthews has never scored fewer than 30 goals in a season in his career, excusing this current season where he'll obviously hit that mark again. Right from when he first touched down in the league against the Ottawa Senators, Auston Matthews has been a phenomenal goal scorer. But it's in the latter years of his brief career so far that he's reached the all-around superstar level that he's at now. Most relevant to his current abilities are the last 3 seasons. In 2021-22, he scored 60 goals in 73 games. He won league MVP by a landslide, along with the Ted Lindsay and the Rocket. Last year was the wrist injury year, a down year for Matthews, which for him still meant 40 goals. He also had his most important career playoff run, even if the early second-round exit was disappointing. And then this year, he's gotten back to MVP-level form. With 29 goals in 32 games, Auston Matthews has started to break away from Brock Besser and Nikita Kucherov for the NHL scoring lead. He's currently scoring at a 74-goal pace, which would be the most goals scored in a single season in over 30 years, since both Teemu Selanne and Alexander Mogilny did it in the same season in 92-93. The scoring isn't unsustainable to an insane degree either. His current 21% shooting percentage is higher than he's ever shot in his career, but not by all that much. Matthews shot a career-best 18.5% in 2020-21. Some regression should be expected, but even with that, another 50 or even 60-goal season is well within reach. Considering his numbers, Auston Matthews is one of the most dominant offensive threats in the NHL. He's firmly in the top 10 best players in the league if you check just his box score statistics. A lot of his other impacts on the game suggest he should be ranked higher. His defensive impact has been among the very best in the league at points, making him one of the most unstoppable forces in the NHL at both ends of the ice. But when you look at ranking him in the top 5, at 4, at 3, or at 2, things become a challenge. Is he better than Nathan MacKinnon, Leon Draisaitl, Cale Makar? Going into this season, NHL.com ranked Auston Matthews as the 7th best player in the NHL. Matthew Tkachuk and David Pastrnak were among names ranked directly above him. However, Bleacher Report actually ranked him 2nd, behind only Connor McDavid. Writers, analysts, and fans will all agree on number 1, but number 2 in the league is definitely up for debate. Could Matthews have that spot on lock after this year? The players most often argued as the 2nd best player in the NHL are Matthews, Draisaitl, and MacKinnon. Makar is on that list too, but given that it's much harder to compare defensemen to forwards, we'll leave him out of this. Out of Matthews, Draisaitl, and MacKinnon, Draisaitl has scored the most points in the past 3 seasons. MacKinnon has the highest points per game, where Matthews ranks 3rd among them in both. So, We know that when you're arguing in favor of Auston Matthews as one of the very best players in the NHL, you're arguing in favor of his goal scoring. Matthews has the most goals between the three, with 129 in 179 games over 3 years. His goals per game is the highest, although surprisingly, he ranks second in shots, with fewer than McKinnon. Basically, the conversation surrounding offensive production comes down to how you value goals comparatively to points overall. Compared to the absolute best of the best, Matthews is not the absolute best overall producer. In fact, he's not even close to the heights the likes of McDavid, Draisaitl, and Nikita Kucherov can reach. However, he is the best goal scorer, or at least he has been in recent years. In fact, his goal scoring is so impressive that it's reaching all-time levels that we've only really seen from one other modern player. Alexander Ovechkin has, in many people's eyes, become the greatest goal scorer in the history of the NHL. Anyone around to watch throughout the mid-2000s and early 2010s will have fond memories of prime Ovi. While Matthews may not have the same physical presence or dynamism that Ovechkin had in his earlier years, he is keeping a staggeringly similar pace to his incredible goal-scoring numbers. Auston Matthews has played 513 NHL games. In his first 513 career games, Alexander Ovechkin had 318 goals. Matthews has 10 more. On just numbers alone, Auston Matthews is a better goal scorer than Alexander Ovechkin at this stage in his career. He matches up against all-time greats and comes out on top. Assuming Matthews has Ovi's longevity, which is a lot to ask for, he could end up being very high up in the NHL's all-time goal-scoring leaderboard when all is said and done. Auston Matthews is not without flaws. Even if he's not the captain, he's often looked to as the leader of a team that's continually failed to meet expectations for years running. It's impossible to separate the factor of playing in Toronto from who he is and where he's ranked. Leafs fans might exaggerate his abilities, but on the other hand, Leafs haters may refuse to give him any credit. There's plenty of room for debate and disagreement when there's so many incredible players at the top of the league. What is inarguable about Auston Matthews is that the goal-scoring run he's been on to start his career is one of the greatest of the modern era. Auston Matthews is the best goal scorer in the NHL today. He's on a pace that rivals prime Alexander Ovechkin, and may even surpass his production if he keeps things up. Goalies have been unable to deal with his shot for over 500 games now, and that's not all there is to his game. He's an excellent defensive presence at his best, and steadily improving in other aspects of the game crucial to a player in his role. He's the most talented Leaf of all time, and maybe even the greatest player overall the franchise has ever had when things are all said and done. This season, Matthews should be among MVP finalists and could claim his second league MVP. If he gets there, he'd be doing so at only 26 years old, over some of the most talented players in the history of the sport. Despite the things he's battled against, from injury to the effects of playing in Toronto to relentless playoff disappointments, Auston Matthews has remained on track as one of the best goal scorers the league has ever seen. It's Auston Matthews against the world, and right now, he's winning.